Well, how's it going out there today in sporty land, boys and girls? This is JPC Sports. Once again, the home of the common Joe and the common Sally in the know, even more so than those media talking heads. That's right. Now, we'll come in here real quick because we got some breaking news on the Big Ten. I haven't heard anything about the Pac-12 because they, as the pansies always do, they follow the Big Ten's lead, but they may have cornered themselves just a tad. And before I get started today, I'd like to ask you guys and gals to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Subscribe, most importantly, to this channel, as well as drinking our prospective sponsor. That's right, Corona, the best beer made outside the USA. Now, getting right to it, how things have changed for Kevin Warren and his hypocrisy. Thou hypocrisy hath cometh unto thee, Kevin Warren, in multitudes. Now the players are talking about opting out of the entire season. Mr. Warren, it will rewind back to the summer, decided that we're going to go to conference games only, and all the other conferences fell in line with Mr. Warren. And at that time, I think Mr. Warren got this big sense of self-importance that was a little bit more than what he really thought. See, he had this huge self-importance aura about himself. He thought that, hey, I'm King Dingaling here. So we move into September, and he's thinking to himself, well, I can make everybody go to conference games only. We'll just shut this thing down, and everybody will follow Mr. Kevin Warren. King Dingaling of the Big Ten. Well, then things start coming out about Mr. Warren. Like Mr. Warren, for one, in his grand hypocrisy, his son, Powers Warren, plays for the SEC, plays for the Big Ten. So, with that being said, Mr. Warren looks a tad bit... Sorry about that. I had to take a real quick break because my dog was outside. He was raising hell too. Let's say hello to Mo. Mo even knew that the Big Ten was full of crap. So I had to let Mo in here so he could listen in on this call out of the Big Ten. Yes, Mr. Warren was allowing his son to play for Mississippi State, yet the entire Big Ten conference couldn't play. How does that work? How is it that you're so concerned about your conference that you allow your son to play in these hazardous times? See, what Mr. Warren thought was, well, like I said, everybody bowed down to me last time I made this grand epiphany. They'll do it again. And my son won't have to play for the SEC or the Mississippi State. But it didn't happen that way. See, because what happened was, Mr. Warren, what you didn't take into account is that while you did control the Big Ten playing non-conference games, once you made it to where everybody controlled their own destiny and made it to where only conference games would play, then every conference had a say and made decisions on their own and had their own ball at that point to play with. And see, now, all of a sudden, the Big Ten wants to take a real quick vote, and they want to start playing again by next week. Hadn't had any kind of practice or anything. And they want to play all of a sudden. They want to come out and play with Johnny. They want to come out and play with all the Johnnies of college football that are still playing, and not the sissies that are not playing like the Big Ten and the Pac-12. Well, guess what, Mr. Warren? We don't need you anymore, brother. Everybody's got their own ball now that they can play with. Your little shiny-ass ball ain't so shiny no more now, is it? And this is the way it's always been with the Big Ten. I like certain fan bases in the Big Ten because they get it, like Ohio State, Wisconsin. But they just don't get it, man. They think they can just control everything, or they want to control everything, and that's just not the way it works, man. And the Pac-12 should be ashamed of themselves too, because every time the Big Ten does something, they always placate to them bow down to them and come running up underneath their Big Ten skirt. Well, now the skirt's been blown up and the Big Ten's been exposed as someone who was trying to serve an agenda, someone who's trying to push their own political views, and that being Mr. Warren. Now, my suggestion is the Big Ten after this year, I'm sure they're not going to be able to do it this year, but after this year, I say they remove Mr. Warren for his overstepping of boundaries and his forcing of views upon the rest of college football. And not only that, but the Big Ten Conference, because it seems to me like a lot of the Big Ten powers that be, a lot of the traditional powers like Ohio State, they weren't really down with this decision. And it should be across the board a unanimous decision, not the vote was 8-6. No. If you got 6 teams out there that want to play, let them play. If the other 8 teams want to take the little ball and go home and hide up underneath the cover somewhere, then let them do that. But you got to give people the right to decide, Mr. Warren. Just because your one little strong arm worked back in, July or June, doesn't mean that arm's going to be strong enough to continue to try to domineer and dictate to everybody else. Now, you guys and gals can give me your views on this and whether you think the Big Ten has basically screwed themselves in the comments section. Because if they don't come back and the Pac-12 don't look like they're coming back, they're literally and figuratively burning down out there on the West Coast. Not to make any puns at the wildfires, but they're burning. These 2 conferences in the near future, if they don't come back and make something out of this pretty quick, they could be like the Ivy League, when the Ivy League moved to just being a conference of their own and just playing amongst themselves in college football back in the 1930s. They could get to that point where nobody really wants to play with them because they're always trying to dictate and control things. So, with that, once again, I'd like to ask you guys and gals out there to like, share, and most importantly, subscribe to this channel. And give me some comments on my little LL Cool J or LL Cool JPC Corona hat. Tell me if you like it. If not, I'll just put back on the cowboy hat, or I can just go straight bald. Well, all right, I'm out of here. And as always, KMCA to all your teams.